them shouting? SOS. Are you them crying?
Hello, everybody. We are here for another week of Main Stage Alternative. No, we're not. We're here for another week of Main Stage Wrestling.
Jacy continually
No, I know.
on the fans.
I know. I don't even know if we're doing the right. You hear the music right now, right? Doesn't it sound so loud? I feel like it should be going down. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm just going insane. I don't even know if we're on the air right now, to be quite honest, because our headphones are not the most functional thing in the world. Oh, good. The music keeps playing, regardless of whether or not we're here talking. But, I hear myself. Do you hear that?
Yeah, we're going through the studio monitors.
Oh, that's so good. So we are here. We're live on Main Stage Wrestling. Off to a hot start, guys. Off to a hot start. And there was some SOS as sung by some guy who was probably supposed to be Kofi Kingston back in 2008. But still, we're here. Another week of Main Stage Wrestling. How's everything going, man?
As you know, but the viewers at home probably don't, I have been terribly sick this week. My sinuses basically imploded, and this is the first time since Tuesday I have emerged from my apartment, so I'm very happy to be here and out of my just terrible trance of illness. Yes,
no, I definitely get that, and I appreciate you being here as well. I'm very happy you could make it too, because I was about to have to brave this alone, man, and do my first Main Stage Wrestling by my lonesome, because I found out like 2 days ago that you were sick and that you might not be coming. So I didn't have that much time to find a replacement, so things were looking rough for a little bit, but I'm very glad you're here for another week of Main Stage.
Just got like moppy or something, you know?
No, that's true. I see. The thing is, I'm very prejudiced against mops. I'm not a fan. I would never give them a platform like this, you know?
What about head?
Nah.
Not like, college appropriate?
No, I don't think so. I definitely do not. This is, of course, Main Stage Wrestling on WERW Real College Radio. So no, not college appropriate at all. And I have my phone sitting in front of me right now. Cause
what was the name of Chavo Guerrero's pet horse in WCW?
I don't know. I didn't watch WCW. I've never seen a single Nitro, man. That's a fact.
I can't remember what the name of the horse was, but then Buff Bagwell threw it through a wood chipper.
Oh, good. As one does. You know, I want
those pommel horses, you know, like the horse heads with the stick that.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about for sure. Yeah, I didn't remember Buff Bagwell destroying one, murdering a horse, as it were. Yeah. No, I didn't remember that. But I was saying I have my phone right in front of me.
Pommel horse, that's a gymnastics thing.
Oh, it's close enough. I didn't know the difference, man. I got the gist of what you were saying. But I have my phone in front of me. If anyone's listening that has my phone number, that's you, parents and grandparents. If you can hear us right now, please let us know. Or if you can't hear us right now, I'm sure you'll be letting us know eventually.
I can hear us in the studio monitors with like a quarter-second, half-second delay, so
yeah,
I think we're okay.
I hope so. I wish the headphones would work. That would make life so lovely and so much easier, but regardless, guys, again, here for another week of Main Stage Wrestling, and I think it's important to me to plug that we now have social media.
We do.
It's at MainStageSU on Twitter and Instagram, and it's for the entire Main Stage Radio brand here at Syracuse University. All student-run radio, the wrestling show here every Saturday, the alternative music show every Friday night. And so, again, on Instagram and Twitter, at MainStageSU, go ahead and follow us and stay up to date on everything Main Stage.
And, of course, you can follow our personal accounts. I'm at Stuck in Sam's Head, and you are
Oh, man, I'm at J. Cola Media, real official, and I'm a member of the media. That's what it is, you know?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and I've had that name for the past 2 years, so it really holds up.
As long as it says journalist on your business card, then you're a journalist.
Fair enough. I think that's how it works nowadays, yeah. I think so.
If it says professional on your business card, you're a professional. It's as simple as that.
That's good.
That's how I've been a professional for about 5-6 years now, so I got business cards made.
All you need to do is open your mouth and people take you seriously in the world of broadcast, you know?
As long as they don't see me.
Well, okay, yeah, no, that's very, very fair. But we have a new format, changed from last week almost. Not really. It's the same format that we used last week.
No, it's the same thing, just a little abbreviated.
Yeah, but last week we had thought that we were going to be doing this fantasy booking segment. We don't have enough time, guys. There's so much in the world of wrestling. We don't have enough time to do that sort of stuff, so we're just going to focus on the news stories and focus on our match of the week, and that will be Main Stage. We still got to have those breaks for the songs every however often. So I think it's about time we dive into the top 5 news stories this week, don't you say?
Let's get down to business.
Okay, and this is, again, all in my eyes, how I view the top 5 news stories. They're in an order that I feel is most convenient for us to go through. And so first off, we're going to be discussing WWE and Inter-Gender Wrestling, man, because I don't know if you're aware, but back early, almost 7 days ago at this point, an advertisement came out for a WWE live show taking place on February 22nd in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and one of the matches advertised was a special intergender matchup between Dean Ambrose and Nia Jax. And this was coming off their whole confrontation on Raw from the week beforehand, where Dean insinuated that she wanted to, engage in an intimate activity with said WWE superstar, which, I mean, who doesn't really, you know?
Yeah, he has that charisma, that magnetism.
He does, and he made that very, very clear. And
a pluckish rogue, if you will. Very Harrison Ford-esque.
Yes, and
vibe.
Nia, I believe, did take some umbrage with that insinuation, and so they were advertised to be going one-on-one in a special intergender matchup, and this was just out of nowhere, really, because not necessarily, because Nia had her appearance in the Men's Royal Rumble, but out of the blue in the sense that a couple months ago, no one would have ever thought that there'd be an intergender wrestling match in WWE. There was that one James Ellsworth Becky Lynch match, but is James Ellsworth a man? It's up for debate.
Well, according to Chris Jericho, he's a lost child at ringside. So in that sense, maybe it's even worse.
It makes sense. And I love that right now in February of 2019, James Ellsworth gets brought up at least once per main stage wrestling. That's always a good sign of where we're at.
Just like the Eelies.
Oh, yeah, man. Well, I mean, they're more of we have to bring them up, almost.
They're a cultural force.
They are.
This is the Eely hour, after all.
And we're college kids. We stay hip with it, and the Eelys sort of penetrate that sort of area of pop culture, so I think we sort of have to mention
Eelys
them.
are the very definition of with it.
With it? Yeah, no, I would absolutely agree with that. Absolutely. So again, Dean versus Nia advertised for this house show, and all this controversy and excitement on social media sort of ensued because it's a pretty controversial topic in pro wrestling in general about whether or not intergender wrestling should be a thing. And I guess I just want to know, what are your thoughts on intergender wrestling as a whole, not just this Nia and Dean deal?
Intergender wrestling there's a fine line to be drawn there because I'm in favor of it. I do think that I like the idea, you know what, if men want to take on women, women want to take on men, that's totally fine. There comes to be a line where it's a difficult balance to strike because you can't have a woman just kicking the you-know-what out of a man, because then that makes the male competitor look bad.
That is James Ellsworth, this is Becky Lynch.
This is true. But at the same time, you can't have the man just beating up over the woman, because then that's that's just kind of wrong.
Is it wrong? Because then what's the difference between that and saying, throwing Kalisto in there with Brock Lesnar and having Brock just kill Kalisto?
Well, maybe I'm not a fan of Brock killing Kalisto either.
Are you not?
Well, I mean, I enjoyed Kalisto and Braun Strowman's dumpster match on Raw a couple of years ago. You remember that?
Oh, yes, I do indeed.
Braun Strowman said, this is Raw is garbage, I know you are too.
Yeah, no.
Roman Reigns is garbage, I know you are too.
Oh, good. Yes, yeah, that's much more appropriate. For him to insult the show he's on, so egregious. No, it'd be Roman Reigns. So, I guess I get where you're coming from. You don't just want to...
I'm thinking back to... Because I know how much you enjoy Lucha Underground. And
yeah,
how much
of course.
I enjoy Lucha Underground. Pentagon Dark versus the Black Lotus Triad.
Oh, yeah.
And there was an uncomfortable point where, although when he faced Io Shirai, that was a fantastic match, there was an uncomfortable point during those 3 matches where it just kind of felt like Pentagon beating up a woman or two.
I mean, I guess so, but I also think that fits the Pentagon character, and that he's just... He's sort of a badass that doesn't care and will beat up a woman if they want to fight him, you know? He'll break a woman's arm, he'll break Taya's arm, he'll break anyone's arm, you know? He doesn't discriminate based on gender.
It's kind of like you have to play to your strengths.
Yeah.
You know, I've worked with a wrestling promotion or two that has put on a couple of intergender matches.
Hey, and of course, Wild Zero Wrestling, the promotion up here in Syracuse, at their upcoming show on... what's the date? February 17th, I believe.
17th.
On that Sunday, there'll be an intergender match or two going down at that very show at Pastime Athletic Center.
That is true, but the thing I'm thinking about specifically was I worked a show with Shannon Moore, formerly of WCW, WWE, TNA, etc., and he was involved
Three
in...
Count especially.
Yes, he was part of 3 Count, and Matt Hardy's protege.
Oh, of course.
And Shannon was talking about he was in a mixed-gender tag team match, an intergender tag team match, and he was saying there's a way to work with women to be able to show off the strengths that women wrestlers have. Rather than just facing them like you would another male competitor, you take advantage of the fact that they're a little smaller, they're a little quicker because they're more acrobatic, athletic, etc. And there is a way to set up a match where you can show off the potential that female wrestlers have versus just structuring it like a match against a male.
For sure. And so I think all those problems that you're bringing up don't exist in the world of WWE with Dean Ambrose versus Nia Jax, because, I mean, Dean he's smaller than Nia as far as, like, body mass goes, you know?
Yeah.
So you can just have a normal sort of match between them that just has the interesting dynamic of one's a man and one's a woman, and it really doesn't matter physically.
This is true. It's kind of like Awesome Kong's very short tenure in WWE when she was Karma. She did appear in the Men's Royal Rumble.
Yeah, I mean, so has Beth Phoenix. A bunch of women have appeared in the Royal Rumble. Most notably, Beth Phoenix making out with the Great Khali as they fell out of the ring. Yes.
I think Awesome Kong I think she eliminated Dolph Ziggler,
Did she? That makes sense.
Yeah, I think she got 2 eliminations. So when you have a big man woman like that...
A big man woman. Yes, my favorite. My favorite type of woman.
Where does the hyphen go?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I don't know. It's for them to decide.
But when you have someone like that, then it definitely works better than if you say we're going to have, I don't know, Dean Ambrose versus Alexa Bliss.
Which I still think could be a fun match.
It could be a very fun match.
Just depends on how you build it.
Speaking of the match of the week that we're going to be talking about later, I was watching that. And
of course, it's Bayley versus Sasha Banks from Takeover Brooklyn 1 back in 2015.
That is correct. I was watching that and thinking, why don't women do more lucha things?
What? Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing more of it in NXT now when they hire these sort of gymnast people like Casey Catanzaro, because I've been thinking the same question for a while now, and then it was actually one of those thoughts running through my mind as I was watching the Women's Royal Rumble, and then Casey came out, and I was like, oh wait, there are people sort of filling this role. It's just they don't have masks. And the ones that do have masks aren't the typical luchadors either. It's real weird, but I think we're going to be seeing more and more of it.
Yeah, I was watching the match, and Bayley does break out a couple of good lucha things.
Oh, man.
But it brings me back to what I was thinking about that Shannon Moore said, was that there are certain advantages that female wrestlers have over male wrestlers. It's that acrobatic ability and the flexibility and the athletic ability. And I think it just is a natural extension for more lucha-type moves to be broken out.
Definitely. But back to the story of Nia and Dean. After that match was sort of advertised for this house show in Arkansas, 2 days later, it was reported by Dave Meltzer, because I guess he called up the company and was like, hey, what's going on with this match? And they were like, that's an outdated advertisement. The match is canceled. It's no longer happening. And so then there was even more controversy, because people were like, well, why did they announce it? Wait, did the people complaining win? It was real confusing. And now there are apparently reports that WWE still isn't done with the idea of having an intergender match like that. They're still very much open to it. And so I don't understand the situation. I don't understand the direction they're going in, but I'm totally down to see more intergender wrestling in WWE, and I think a lot of it is down to the whole mixed match challenge that they started up last year.
Yeah, I'm cool with the idea. I can enjoy a good intergender match or two as long as it's presented properly and it's not uncomfortable to watch.
For sure. Yeah, no, I get that. See, I think Wrestle Circus, that promotion that used to run in Austin, Texas, that I would go to the shows of, they were a great example of this, because at one of their first shows I went to, they had a match between Donovan Dijak, of course now,
Dominic
Dijakovic. Yes.
Because no one in WWE has heard an Eastern European name be pronounced before.
Well, are you from Croatia? I don't think so, man.
Well, I mean, I have ancestors from Poland and Russia, etc.
Well, Mr. Dijakovic's parents are from Croatia, so I'll take his word on it. But he was going up against Tessa Blanchard in a one-on-one match, and it was wildly uncomfortable, because he just murdered Tessa Blanchard for 10 minutes, and she really got, no offense in. But then nearly a year later, they had an amazing match between Tessa Blanchard and Brian Cage for the main championship of the company, and it was great, like really, really great how they built that match and how it all went down. It's on YouTube too if you want to check it out. It was a great something like 20-minute match between the two of them. And again, Brian Cage, he's a machine. He's a very, very large man.
He is a machine, yeah.
Tessa Blanchard, a pretty petite woman, and they put on a pretty great match.
I wouldn't say that Tessa Blanchard is about as built as a woman can be.
Well, she's built, but like I guess I mean petite more in the height sort of sense, because yeah. But that, I think those two matches are very great examples of where it's not done well and where it's like executed perfectly, and you highlight those strengths that a woman does have in those sort of situations. So there we go. I'm excited to see what happens with this whole sort of Dean and Nia story. But
Could be interesting.
Yeah, man. We can move on to our next story. You mentioned earlier that gauntlet match from Lucha Underground with Pentagon and 3 members of the Black Lotus tribe, and I think it's about time we start talking about a gauntlet match from this past Tuesday on SmackDown, where Kofi Kingston just stole the entire show, man. It was so good. So basically what happened is there was a 6-man gauntlet match heading into Elimination Chamber this Sunday, tomorrow, but at the beginning of SmackDown, it was announced that Mustafa Ali would no longer be able to participate in the chamber, and so his replacement would be one of the members of the New Day, and they had the whole entire show to decide which one of the 3 would be replacing Mustafa. And then by the time the actual gauntlet match gets ready to take place, the first competitor in the ring is Daniel Bryan, the champion, and number 2 is the member of the New Day, and they choose Kofi to go in there, replace Mustafa, and then this gauntlet match starts, man. And Kofi is in there for over an hour, nearly the same amount of time that Seth Rollins was back on Raw a year ago when they did this sort of thing, and he beat the world champion Daniel Bryan, then he beat a future Hall of Famer in Jeff Hardy, and then he beat Samoa Joe, which is just, come on, if you listen to last week's episode, you know Joe. So he beat those 3 men, and then he has like a near 15-minute match with AJ Styles to end it all off on, which he does unfortunately lose, but it's still amazing 4 matches in a row.
Sometimes there's victory in defeat. If you
of course.
If you come out looking fantastic afterwards, then there's no shame in losing, and Kofi Kingston looked like a superstar, which he is.
I mean, all of them are. There are over 100 superstars in WWE, believe it or not.
Yes, but he was. Perhaps I should have said he looks like a rock star.
Like
yes. Shinsuke Nakamura.
Like
basically.
Mark Wahlberg. Yes, no, that's great. He actually turned down an appearance at WrestleMania once. I think I may have told you before.
Was that a reference to the motion picture Rockstar?
Yes, it was indeed.
I actually really enjoyed the soundtrack to that movie.
Oh, that's great. Stand up and shout, man.
Yeah, it was Zakk Wylde of Black Label Society, and Ozzy Osbourne had a bassist from Foreigner. Jason Bonham, the son of Led Zeppelin's drummer, was on the drums. A really cool take on
I only knew the name Ozzy Osbourne out of all of that, man. I really did.
A bunch of really great musicians.
I gotcha.
Putting a cool take on the whole hair metal genre.
For sure. And so at the end of Kofi's, again, over an hour performance in the ring, he gets a standing ovation from the crowd, and it was a pretty cool moment for him because, I mean, everyone knows that Kofi's great, and everyone says he's great. He's like one of those guys like Dolph, where people know it and they acknowledge it, but he doesn't get all that many opportunities to show it. Like,
It's like, it's not that Kofi Kingston isn't successful. This is a true fact. If you were watching WWE at some point in the last 10 years, there's a 33% chance that Kofi Kingston was the tag team champion during that time.
When I was looking up Kofi on Google when I was preparing for the show this week, one of the first autofill things that pops up when you type in his name is Kofi Kingston still with WWE? He's been around that long, you know? Where it's just like, it's pretty great. And yeah, again, he's has to be one of the
successful, but what you were saying, he doesn't get the chance to show it is because you don't get to show off when you're in a tag team matches quite as much,
especially when you're in a trio like the New Day, where even if you are on TV every week, you might not be wrestling every week.
Yeah, he has been basically a tag team specialist over the past 10 years, so he hasn't gotten to show off too much, and even though he's been a tag team champ, he hasn't gotten a chance to really vie for any singles championships during that time.
There was that one time he fought with Randy Orton back in like 2009, where he spilled a bunch of paint on top of Randy Orton's race car.
I remember that.
Yeah. I think that's the only real big singles feud I remember Kofi being in. I know he had some stuff with The Miz, but nothing on the level of that Randy Orton feud.
And not in a feud, but in 2015 at Beast in the East in Tokyo.
Oh,
he did
yeah.
fight Brock Lesnar.
He did, but that was out of nowhere. Like, there was no story whatsoever, and when it was announced that it was Kofi in that match, people were like, what? Why? That doesn't make sense. Why are you doing this?
I mean, it was a fun match.
It was fun. It was fun. It just, no one thought Kofi had a chance. And up until last week, no one thought Kofi Kingston would be anywhere near the World Championship title for a very long time, for the foreseeable. And now in one episode of SmackDown, people are actually excited that he might be winning the championship come Sunday.
And here we are, the entire main stage universe currently rooting for Kofi Kingston to go into WrestleMania as WWE champion.
Yeah, okay. I do take a bit of umbrage with that statement for you speaking for me. Speaking out of turn, Sam, I don't appreciate that because as much as I would like Kofi to win this Sunday, as much as I would like to see him become champion sometime soon, I don't think I want him holding the title going into Mania because I think there are so many bigger stars that you could build a better match around almost going into the biggest show of the year in WrestleMania. I don't think a Kofi Kingston world title match is going to be too big of a deal compared to say like vegan bad guy Daniel Bryan versus good guy Miz, or like even AJ Styles, just any of the other guys in that match would be a bigger deal going into Mania. I don't know if Kofi's necessarily there yet.
Well then, how about Kofi Kingston eliminates Daniel Bryan from Elimination Chamber, but does not win the championship, and then it's Kofi versus Bryan at Mania where Kofi wins the WWE Championship in a feel-good moment in front of 70,000 screaming Hulkamaniacs.
Oh man, all those Hulkamaniacs, man. Hogan's probably actually going to be there this year, so that's nice. But I would be much cooler with that because I think I would prefer seeing Kofi go into Mania as an underdog like that instead of the reigning champion. I think that's a bit more appropriate, especially since he hasn't been this established main event guy over the past 5 years, whereas someone like Daniel Bryan or Randy Orton or AJ Styles sort of has been. And so I think that'd be much more appropriate, and I'd be way into seeing that.
I agree. I was just thinking back to Bray Wyatt winning the WWE Championship. It was 2015, 16? I think it was 16.
There's no signal going into this computer. I don't know 17. What's going on.
I don't remember what year it was, but when Bray Wyatt won the WWE Championship at Elimination Chamber for the first time, I kind of can almost see Elimination Chamber as a jumping off point for people who would not normally be considered championship material, if you will. Not that Bray Wyatt or Kofi Kingston isn't championship material, but they normally wouldn't have been in contention for a championship of that nature. I
definitely get what you're saying. So I think we've about covered it with Kofi this past week on Tuesday, and I think it's about time that we get into our third biggest news story of the week, in that Jay White is the new IWGP heavyweight champion, man. So this happened back just, again, almost 7 days ago at this point, at New Japan's New Beginning in Osaka, where Jay White upset the 8-time champ, the 42-year-old Hiroshi Tanahashi. He went down for the count, and Jay White, again, now the 8th youngest. No, that's not right. What was it? He's one of the youngest champions in history over there.
One of the youngest, the first New Zealander champion.
Yeah, the 8th Gaijin. And I didn't find out until this week researching it that the dude's only been wrestling for 6 years. I know he's real young, but I thought he had been into it since he was like a teen. But no, he started wrestling at 20, which it's like he's already that good. He's already champion. And I thought it was a pretty big deal, And oh, there it is. He's the 4th youngest champion of all time in New Japan, which, again, also a very big deal. And I feel like he was already on the sort of quick path to success, a very sort of skyrocketed trajectory. But you have to admit it was expedited by Omega and the Bucks and all them leaving, right?
Not expedited. I think that was the exact reason. Was because they needed to fill the role of top foreign heel or champion.
You don't think he would have gone into that role had they not left?
I think that he was being positioned for the role. I think it would have taken another couple of years.
Yeah, but that's what I mean by expedited.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but I'm saying it wasn't like 4 months pushed up.
I see.
We're talking a couple of years.
For sure.
Did you know that is it pronounced Gedo?
Gedo, yeah.
Gedo actually books 2 years in advance.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, I did not.
Apparently, he has a series of notebooks and whatnot where he marks out exactly where he wants the stories to go for 2 years in advance so that he can get the best slow builds possible.
That's pretty great. I mean,
So
it pays off.
Yeah, and I imagine that, like, 2 years from now, he probably would have had Jay White IWGP champion.
Yeah.
But sometimes circumstances are beyond
For
your
sure,
control. For
for
instance,
sure.
Kenny Omega signing with AEW. So sometimes you got to look at the notebooks, tear out a few pages, and say, okay, we're doing this
And
now.
I'm sure there are people that are like, oh, I wish WWE would do that. Like with their booking, it's week to week. But when you have 5 hours of television to write every week, you can't really book 2 years ahead of time with how frequent they're on the road, how many injuries occur, all that sort of stuff. I think it's silly. But I know people do think that, and they do say that sort of stuff about it. It's a bit absurd.
Well, I have my own umbrages with WWE's booking.
Yeah, no, fair enough. As anyone does, I do as well. But I'm not going to fault them for not booking 2 years out. It's a
I'm
bit.
not going to fault them for that either.
So yeah, but the reason or what I thought was most interesting about Jay winning the title was that, again, like you said, it's because of their Western expansion. Because again, they have that big show coming up in Madison Square Garden come WrestleMania weekend, and so they sort of want a gaijin in that position to sort of make sure people show up. Even though the show sold out, I think they might be a bit worried about people actually bothering to come through, because again, the Bucks and Omega not there really. So
I think it's also important to notice that kind of secondary to the expansion into the United States, or at least to people in the United States, is New Japan's expansion into Australia right now. They're making a big push for Australian fandom right now because they are around the same time zone, Australia and Japan.
I gotcha. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So
right?
they've been sending a lot of talent down to Australia, New Zealand, etc. I know Will Ospreay has made a huge push into developing talent in Australia.
I gotcha.
That's why WWE held Super Showdown, was because they were like, well, let's try and stop some of that in its tracks.
Definitely.
But I think that having a Kiwi champion in Jay White
Didn't
will
they
definitely help get some New Zealanders, Australians on their side, although I don't think they really are quite aware of how much New Zealanders and Australians have contempt for each other.
Well, but didn't WWE also just in their new sort of wave of signees announce that they have a tag team from Australia, and then they signed Jonah Rock, who's, I believe, a New Zealander.
Jonah Rock is New Zealander, yes.
Yeah.
They signed a tag team from Canada.
Oh, is it from Canada?
It's from Canada.
Okay, did they wrestle in Australia? Maybe that's... I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about.
I mean, they had TM61.
They did. And then Nick Miller had to leave because he has a kid, you know? And now Shane Thorne's just losing to Mr. Dijakovic. So,
Which is
who
too
knows?
bad, because Shane Thorne's great.
He is. I think over time he'll probably come into his own, but when your tag team partner sort of abandons you and you don't have much of a character, like... as an individual, it might take a while.
TM61.
Yeah, it might take him a bit.
It's like, what if Razor had to start wrestling as a singles competitor?
Yeah, I mean, granted, with his build, he has a built-in character, but
true.
Still. So I want to know, what are your thoughts on New Japan right now in general? Because I feel like interest is sort of waning, because basically what I'm trying to say is that I don't think New Japan is perceived as cool as it was, say, a year and a half ago or 2 years ago.
A lot of that comes from the Bullet Club not leaving, but
just what happened to the Bullet Club?
What happened
with
Bullet
Gato,
Club?
Jado, and Switchblade joining? Yeah, it sort of destroyed that group, which was what a lot of the Americans watched for. But you do still have groups like Suzuki-gun and LIJ, which people love and are probably a bit cooler in the Bullet Club at this point.
And I think it's also just a matter of overexposure through things like Ring of Honor, Bullet Club, The Elite. Kind of got almost a little played out at one point, a little stale in the American wrestling scene, in my opinion.
I guess so. Yeah, no, that's a fair point, and that's probably one of the reasons why AEW is a thing. You gotta keep on innovating, keep people interested in you, and that's sort of what the three of them are doing. The four of them,
and
rather.
It's not that there aren't fantastic competitors still in NJPW, and it's not like there aren't people that I would want to see. It's just that it's harder as an American to watch a completely foreign product in a language that you don't necessarily understand, with people from a different country that you don't have so much of a grasp on.
Yeah, no, I think that's very fair. And the reason I sound
it's hard for NJPW to take Japanese stars and make them appealing to Americans. That's all. Okada, obviously, we have figured out. But it's hard. For instance, Tanahashi has been compared a lot to the Japanese John Cena, but we don't think of Tanahashi on the same level as John Cena.
Yeah, no, very. I mean, granted, we as Americans don't, just because John Cena's been part of, again, pop culture for the past 15 years. But when people are like, oh, can you like name some equivalents of like who's who in New Japan for like a first-time listener? Everyone compares Tanahashi to the John Cena. You know, we sort of acknowledge that's the case. But the reason we don't see him as such is because it's not as prevalent in American culture, I don't think. I don't think you're ever going to get to that point where an Okada or a Tanahashi is on the level of Cena in American fans' eyes, unless they're like really immersed in Japanese culture.
The first comparison I usually make is that I say that Minoru Suzuki is basically Brock Lesnar.
I can see part of it, like a hybrid sort of. Part of Brock Lesnar is definitely inside of him. He's
smaller than Brock Lesnar, but they have kind of that same aura. They both have the mixed martial arts background. They're both people that will absolutely terrify me and will destroy anyone who even looks at them the wrong way.
Okay, so guys, really, we're through the first 3 news stories already at this point, and I want to go to break and play one of these rads on here. It's not in the cards, because for whatever reason, the monitor in front of me, in front of this in this radio studio, isn't turning on. It's been a black screen for the past 15 minutes, so I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Because, I would love to play the music that we're required to here for the station. Again, WERW Real College Radio, right here from Syracuse University. I would love to play a song for you guys from it, but the monitor is just dead. It's not turning on. I can't get Spotify working. I don't know how I'm going to save the recording by the end of this thing. So that sort of stinks. So I think what we're going to do, man...
Is the monitor on, but you maybe switch the HDMI output?
I don't think so, because what's lit up over here is broadcast. I don't believe that is the case. So who knows what's going on? But whatever. We can't play the music this week. That sort of stinks. But let's just get on with the news stories then. Let's hop in to news story number 2, and that is Charlotte Flair replacing Becky Lynch in the WrestleMania main event against Ronda Rousey. Okay. There's a lot with this thing, man, because I think it's important to get into the whole entire story of Becky Lynch this past week on Raw, because the entire thing was based around Stephanie and Triple H coming out and being like, we forgive you for beating us up last week, we just want an official apology, which to begin with just makes no sense. You immediately get the feeling that they're up to something, and then you have the whole entire episode, Becky refusing to apologize, and then all her friends and some of her enemies too come up to her and they're like, just apologize, this is your ego, it's all that sort of stuff. And so by the end of the show, by the final segment, we have Triple H and Stephanie in the ring again, bringing out Becky. And again, this is her in the main spot of the show, and she's supposed to apologize for beating up her bosses, which, I mean, it makes sense. You probably do want to apologize if you beat up the people employing you, yes.
This is true, but I was hoping that while she was getting advice from everyone, she was going to talk to JEFFJARRETT, and she was just going to do his line of, I'm sorry. Sorry I didn't do it earlier.
Oh, wow. I thought you were going to say that he was going to give her the advice of going to Vince McMahon and holding him up for money, you know?
No, not that advice.
Oh, not that advice?
That's different advice for another time.
I see. Yeah. A few years down the line.
But, you know, that's a thing he did a couple of times.
Yeah, just
Sorry,
a couple.
I didn't do it earlier.
Yeah. So...
By the way, your phone flashlight's on.
Is it? Oh, what? Oh, because I had to plug in the USB. Thank you for that. My battery is draining. So Becky comes out. She's in the ring with Triple H and Stephanie, and she has to apologize, or else she doesn't get the match at WrestleMania against Ronda Rousey. And with Becky, it's sort of a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario, because if she doesn't, she'll just look stubborn and dumb, and the fans are like, why didn't she just apologize? We could have had this match that we all want to see at WrestleMania.
And then if she does, then she looks emasculated.
Yeah, she looks just lame. Like, oh, you apologize to your boss? Like, you don't feel sorry, but you still do apologize? Wow, that's pretty lame. And so, again, damned if you do, damned if you don't. She sort of mumbles it under her breath and gets it over with quickly, and she probably did it in the best possible way she could at that point, given how the story was built. And... also, Triple H and Stephanie looked pretty dumb with this whole story as well, because all they want is an apology for her attacking both of them the week beforehand, and then she can just have her spot back. She can just have her suspension lifted just because they want to hear a couple of words.
Well, you have to think of it from a business perspective. First of all, as we know, great health insurance in WWE, so, their injuries are taken care of.
Of course.
When you're a business owner, you have to say, well, there are things I don't like, but things that make me money at the same time. And Becky Lynch is a draw right now. If you're looking through the eyes of Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, she is someone that makes people tune in. So you say, well, I don't like her, but I can't get rid of her because she makes me money. So I will just take an apology and move on with it.
So, but then that's two contradictory beliefs, because the whole reason they would want an apology is because of ego. So you can't be like, oh, they're doing what's best for business and letting her have this WrestleMania match, even though the match is still contingent on their ego, on them getting an apology. It can't be both ways. It can't be, oh, this is best for business and we want our ego soothed. It's one or the other, I feel.
I don't necessarily see how they're mutually exclusive.
They're mutually exclusive in the sense that if they were just worried about it being best for business, they'd be like, okay, Becky, whatever, you're the man, just have your match, it doesn't matter. But they're still leaving it up to chance. They know that Becky, in character, her character has an immense amount of pride. She doesn't want to apologize. There's a great likelihood she won't. So they're still leaving it up in the air. They're leaving up this great business opportunity of having her in the main event of WrestleMania contingent on her apologizing.
Well, let's keep in mind, Triple H is the cerebral assassin. He's thought 2 or 3 steps in advance, and he knows that even though Becky Lynch doesn't want to apologize, he knows that she wants that WrestleMania match more than anything.
I guess so.
He's banking on her apologizing because he knows how much she wants it. So he can have his cake and eat it too. He can get her to apologize and keep her in the main event and get what's best for business.
Well, guess what, Sam? He couldn't have his cake and he could not eat it too, because we got like a reverse Deus Ex Machina from Vince McMahon, because he comes out and he's like, all this was all for naught. The past hour you've been watching on Raw, it didn't matter. Anything tonight involving Becky Lynch, forget it ever happened, because Becky, you're still suspended. Charlotte Flair is replacing her at WrestleMania.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
man.
my one word Vince McMahon.
Oh, good. I could tell. You had the right level of raspiness. It came through that mic.
It's from the illness.
Oh, of course. So, I think there are two options here, and one of them is more likely. Either one, WWE is just desperate to tell a story that lasts till WrestleMania, and they're maybe getting I don't want to say lazy. I don't want to say the storytelling is lazy, but they're just sort of trying to drag it out till April, and this is the only way they can think to do it. Or they just want to recapture the magic of Stone Cold from 1997 and have him fight Vince, which I think is very unlikely, but the internet would love to have you believe it. So I want to get your take. Which of the two do you feel, or maybe there's another option that I'm not thinking of?
I think it's option number 3, actually.
Oh, man.
Which is that WWE is slowly starting to figure out that in today's modern wrestling scene, it is much more difficult to get heat from a traditional standpoint by being a bad guy, by
tell that to Daniel Bryan.
By denigrating the crowd and whatnot. I said harder. I didn't say impossible.
Okay.
You look at someone like Tommaso Ciampa, who is just the most despicable human being on the planet and still gets 50-50 cheers these days.
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
So
but
the only way, or not the only way, but one of the best ways now to get consistent heat is to exploit the meta.
I don't get why.
And the meta is that people want Becky Lynch in the main event.
Yes.
So it's not that they're using Charlotte by doing, she is your traditional bad guy or whatever. You hate Charlotte because she is taking away from you the match that you want to see. And as a fan, that makes you mad, and that's brilliant.
But it almost doesn't make me mad, because I realize when I see that they're playing into it, I realize, oh, they know we're upset and we actually want to see Becky Lynch in the main event against Ronda Rousey. They're not delusional like a lot of people believe they are. They hear what the fans are saying. They know what we want. And if they're going to incorporate what we want into the storyline, odds are they're going to go in the direction that we want by the end of it. They're not going to tease us and then just still not give us what they want, because that's not how you run a business.
No, I mean, the thing I'm afraid of is that by introducing this, it's going to become a triple threat between Charlotte, Becky, and Ronda Rousey.
Which I'm still fine with. The match will be fun, but I had a reason.
It'll be a good match, but I am not as fine with it because, let's be honest, Becky Lynch has not been able to have her spotlight without Charlotte being involved in some way, and I just want Becky to be able to go out there without having to worry about Charlotte. I agree. And as a single person, just grab her spotlight and grab her place at the top.
You know why I don't worry about that becoming a triple threat? It's because I still think that it is a matter of them just trying to stretch the story till April, and the only way to really carry on this heat for another 2.5 months is to have your top star sort of suspended, so people still care about her and they still are real passionate about her, like, oh my gosh, the man, they're up against her, and so Becky can keep building a chip on her shoulder, she can keep being great on social media, and it keeps her relevant, and she doesn't have to be on TV every week, like overexposing herself and coming out on Raw, just antagonizing Rousey and never actually engaging in any physical contact.
I can see there being another match at a pay-per-view from between now and WrestleMania where Becky has to face Charlotte.
I think that's a guarantee at Fastlane.
Yeah, she'll have to beat Charlotte in order to get her place back at WrestleMania.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure that's going to be happening. But I also think another reason why it won't be a triple threat is because where's Asuka been? Nowhere. You could say it's because of the whole women's tag match taking place this Sunday at the Elimination Chamber, but she hasn't been on TV, I don't think, since she beat Becky at the Royal Rumble. Maybe once to cut a promo or something. But I think that's a pretty good sign that they're not slotting her in there with another woman, and I think the reason they're doing that is because they're just going to have a rematch between her and Charlotte at WrestleMania. I think that's the likely path to go down because, I mean, Charlotte Flair is the biggest woman on the entire show. Like on either Raw or SmackDown, aside from maybe Ronda, I guess, sort of, kind of, but the best pure wrestler on either Raw or SmackDown. And
we haven't seen Ronda Rousey versus Asuka yet, have we?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think so. Maybe at like a house show or something.
No, but do I want to see that match?
Yeah, no, it'd be pretty great. It'd be a real weird way to go about it if we had Becky versus Charlotte at Mania and then Rousey versus Asuka. Don't think we're ending up there, but. Basically what I'm saying is that since Asuka hasn't been on TV, she hasn't been building a story for WrestleMania, which is quickly approaching, and she is the SmackDown Women's Champion, it's a pretty safe assumption she's going to be fighting Charlotte. But I also love the idea that Charlotte still has this hypothetical match with Becky at Fastlane, where if Becky loses, she's out of the, or sorry, not Becky, if Charlotte loses, she's out of the match, and she's out of the match, Asuka has a different opponent, and then Charlotte ends up in the Women's Battle Royal, and then there's the whole story of how Charlotte fell off, like she doesn't have like the it factor anymore, like she's losing it almost in a sense. And I think it could be an interesting story that you haven't really told with Charlotte Flair yet, because again, she's been this top woman since she's come onto the main roster years ago, back in 2015. And so I don't know, I think that could be a fun story, have her in that battle royal, maybe even lose it too.
Fantasy booking time. Since,
man,
we eliminated the segment, at least I can put in a minute or two of it.
Oh, please do.
I like the idea, now that you bring it up, of Charlotte Flair constantly losing her opportunities and matches, so she just keeps attacking other women to try and get into other women's matches. So, like, she gets beat by Becky, for instance, and she's out of the WrestleMania main event. So Charlotte has a different... Asuka has a different opponent, and Charlotte beats up whoever Asuka's opponent would have been.
I see what you're saying.
And then, like, maybe she tries to get into the women's tag team titles or contention or something like that. Just she's frustrated that she can't get the matches that she wants to, so she's just trying to eliminate everyone, so there's no choice but to put her in there.
It's like the John Cena story from last WrestleMania, or wait, was it last? No, it was the year before last, where he just wanted a spot at WrestleMania,
right? Yeah.
And he couldn't get one. And so, but this is a bad guy version of that.
Yeah,
I like
so
that. I think it's fun.
A little more violent version of that.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm into it. So I think that's enough with Charlotte and Becky from this past week in the world of wrestling. Yeah, I know. We have one more news story left, and it's a pretty quick one to run through. It's the fact that AEW sold out their Double or Nothing event taking place in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand Arena in 4 minutes. All 12,000 plus seats sold out basically immediately, quicker than All In, right?
That is, yeah. All in sold out in 30 minutes, I think.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's pretty sick. Also, I thought this was a way bigger deal earlier in the week until I learned that the MGM Grand was only 12,000 seats, because I was under the assumption it's like any other basketball arena where it's like 20,000. So that's why I know I was texting you earlier.
It's not as much of a basketball venue as it is a concert
That's
venue.
what I've since learned.
I saw Aerosmith at the MGM Grand a couple years ago. Living Colour opened for them. It was great.
Wow. But
yeah, it's slightly smaller, but it's a perfect setup for something like professional wrestling.
I gotcha. So yeah, earlier in the week I was real excited about it because again I thought they sold out like 20,000 seats in 4 minutes, which is again almost double the size of All In. And then I realized a couple days ago, it was only 12,000. Still very impressive. I don't want to take anything away from them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's why I had messaged you earlier in the week and been so shocked that they sold out. I didn't see it coming at all. So 12,000 seats makes a bit more sense, and it's exciting stuff. Again, some of the matches announced are Pac versus Hangman Page. We got the Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers. We got Omega versus Jericho, and many, many more, it seems, right?
They just announced a triple threat today, I believe, between Kylie Rae, Nyla Rose, and one of the other women that they
One of the other women,
remember.
fair enough. Oh, who was it? Oh, you're right. I don't know.
Not Kong, but it was one of the...
Who knows? But yeah, very happy for them. Excited for the show.
Britt Baker.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
Britt Baker, Nyla Rose, and Kylie Rae is going to be a triple threat.
And then a real quick note also, StarCast officially announced that Sting, Ric Flair, and The Undertaker will all be appearing at the convention taking place in conjunction with Double or Nothing. So that sort of answers our questions from last week about The Undertaker. There we go.
StarCast is trying to make it clear that they're not directly affiliated with AEW. They just happen to appear at the same time.
It was just coincidence.
It's like they're trying to say it's kind of like how every indie company runs a show on WrestleMania weekend. They just know that lots of wrestling fans are going to be there, so they want to run at the same time.
Yeah, it makes sense.
That's kind of the angle they're going for. It's just we see it a little more suspect because, this is 2 all-in events, and they've been at both of them.
Also, there was, before even StarCast was announced, there were photos online that I think was Conrad and Cody both posted on their Twitters of them having a meeting together discussing All In. So, I mean, it wouldn't be wrong of us to assume there's sort of association between the two.
No, I have to imagine there is at least something, but,
For sure. So, guys, that was the news. That was the news in wrestling this week, the top 5 stories as told by the two of us. And, again, right now would be the time that I play another break. We play a song that we're supposed to, but the monitor still isn't turning on for whatever reason that is unbeknownst to me. So, it's about time we move on to our match of the week.
Match of the week. Match of the week. Match of the week.
There we go. My apologies for stepping over you. Yeah. I forgot that's the official title now. So last week we randomized a match from a list of some of the most notorious and some of the most loved matches of all time.
Some of the most noteworthy and some of the most notorious.
Yes, indeed. Just some of the most famous matches of all time in professional wrestling history. We have a big list of them, and every week we randomize one to watch and review here on Main Stage Wrestling. It's either going to be real good or a real bad match, and it's just sort of a 50-50 sort of chance. So this week, we mentioned it earlier, the match that we were assigned to watch was Bayley versus Sasha Banks from NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 1 back on August 22nd of 2015. And do you want me to give you a little backstory about the show in general and the match that you may or may not already be aware of?
I mean, I watched the promo package, and I know a little bit of the background about TakeOver Brooklyn itself, and the idea that it's finally NXT. It's its big expansion. This is its first event outside of Full Sail.
It was its first TakeOver event outside of Full Sail, and this was before AEW, before New Japan and Ring of Honor were selling out Madison Square Garden over here in America, where people still didn't know if NXT was this big enough thing to fill even half of the Barclays Center, which is where the event took place.
It sold it out in minutes, and then they opened up more seats, and it sold that out too.
Yeah, no, they kept opening up sections until the entire venue sold out. All 15,000 and a half plus seats just sold out for this NXT show that people were sleeping on, quite frankly.
To be honest, more people show up for TakeOver Brooklyn each year than they do for Nets games themselves.
That's pretty fantastic. Combined too. Yeah, I think that's how it works. So again, they only opened up about half the venue. The tickets were selling so fast. They were in such high demand that they opened up the entire event. And I also want to point out that this was a time back when you could say that Tyler Breeze and Bayley were two of your favorite wrestlers and not be laughed at. You know, this was peak wrestling in my eyes. Absolutely, 2015.
Tyler Breeze fought Jushin Thunder
He
Liger
did.
to open up this card, which is a match I've seen like 3 or 4 times. By the way, I
don't blame you for that.
I just think it's a really fun match to watch when you got 10 minutes to kill.
So also on this card, that match, Jushin Thunder Liger versus Tyler Breeze.
Who doesn't love Jushin Thunder Liger?
I don't know. It's a great question. But we also had Blake and Murphy, who I believe were tag team champions at the time, as managed by Alexa Bliss. They were going 2-on-2. I was about to say 1-on-1. That's not how tag team matches work, I don't think. They were going up against the Vaudevillains, who were managed by Blue Pants Leva Bates for the one night, which was a bit odd. Then we had Apollo Crews versus Ty Dillinger, and this was one of Apollo Crews' sort of showcase matches because he was brand new to the company. Then we had Samoa Joe versus Baron Corbin, also a sort of showcase match for Joe because he was also very new to the company. And then the main event was a ladder match between Finn Balor and Kevin Owens, and this was sort of the send-off for Owens and the crowning for Balor as Kevin Owens embarked onto the main roster. So it was a pretty big show, especially for NXT back then.
If you need Kevin Owens to put on a barn burner, you either put him with Sami Zayn or you give him a ladder match.
That's fair.
There is probably no one who can do ladder matches quite like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Those two are the apex of ladder match.
For sure. And this show was a few weeks removed from when PCB and Team Bad and Team Bella all made their sort of debuts on the main roster, where Charlotte, Becky, and Sasha were all called up from NXT, and it was sort of supposed to be the spark, the beginning of the whole women's revolution, the women's evolution.
The spark, of course, being Stephanie McMahon.
Oh, yes. She's responsible for women existing, I believe, is what the facts are. And so
Stephanie McMahon, you reduce a few letters, that becomes Eve McMahon.
Oh, yes, of course. That's a great observation, really. I'm glad you pointed out. So one of the big stories going into the show was that women were co-main eventing. It was a weird thing. They weren't going on last, but they built it all up as there are 2 main events, just like there are 10 for WrestleMania. There were 2 main events for this show, the main event with Finn Balor and Kevin Owens, and then this match between Bayley and Sasha Banks. And it was pretty exciting at the time, because women weren't co-main eventing shows, especially not big pay-per-views like this at all. So that was a pretty historic thing, even though before the actual match, before the video package plays, you do have Stephanie coming out and sort of just associating herself with it for no real reason, but I was fine with it. She did a good enough job. She introduced the video package, and she referred to Bayley as the ultimate underdog, which is just absolutely ripping off Rey Mysterio, no? I feel like that
is her thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know how far San Jose is from San Diego. I'm not from California.
True. No, that's a great point, actually. Maybe she did sort of inherit that name just by osmosis of where the cities are located.
Although I did see that Sasha Banks in her gear had kind of a Dia de los Muertes thing going on, which, of course, I'm sure is a tribute to Eddie Guerrero, who she is the only descendant of.
No, yes. I think that's also very, very true. So we have this great video package that plays after Stephanie introduces the co-main event and talks about how the women's evolution is in full effect. And I totally forgot that Bayley was coming into this match with a broken hand. I mean, not a legit broken hand. I think she did legitimately break her hand 2 months beforehand, but I forgot that was the big story going into this thing, that Bayley was just off an injury and she had earned this title match. So it was a great thing I watched that video package, because it filled me in on a little bit. And again, this was back when Bayley was an actual underdog, because she was just sort of the lovable sort of fan wrestler that was in NXT that had some opportunities but could never really capitalize on them, never really pull it off when she was put into some serious spots. And so this was sort of her moment. This was what everyone wanted. This was the perfect storytelling way for her to win the NXT Women's Championship, when she faced off against the boss, Sasha Banks, the total antithesis to that character, where she just thinks she's better than everyone and looks down on a character like Bayley.
And I have to point out her entrance with the Escalade and the bodyguards. It was simple, but it was perfect.
It was pretty good. Even Bayley's entrance before Sasha came out, it was real simple. It was a pretty basic entrance, but that was also her debuting the sort of tassels on her gear, so that was something I remember noticing at the time. And then also she had the Dusty Rhodes armbands and the ponytail holder,
and the double axe handles during the match, which I think, correct me if I'm reaching, but association between tassels and the Macho Man and the double axe handles.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure she was greatly influenced by Macho Man. You know, I think that's the entire reason why she has those tassels. Yeah. No, I think it's a safe assumption to make that Bayley was influenced by the Macho Man Randy Savage. I think it's pretty safe. But she comes out with this Dusty-inspired gear because he had passed away just 2 months beforehand. Real sad. And so that was also a pretty big deal going into this match because clearly both women were greatly influenced by him. It was cool for her. It was a big moment for her. This was the biggest show in NXT history. Here she is coming out, paying tribute to Dusty, and it's her moment. You know, and it was really touching, and I enjoyed it. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. This was back when Bayley was an actual underdog. It wasn't guaranteed that she was going to win. She wasn't thought of as a top woman at the time. She was just like the only one left. When her 3 other friends went up to the main roster, she was the only one left around, and she still wasn't this top star.
I thought the video package did a really good job setting up how she was kind of overlooked this entire time, because as I mentioned before, this was right before I got into wrestling.
Yeah.
So this whole era of WWE is in this weird scenario. It's in this weird place where it's familiar yet completely unfamiliar to me, where I know the names but I don't know what they're doing.
Definitely.
So it was really... the package did a good job of pointing out, you know, that her 3 friends went up to the main roster, and she's still around, and then there were, you know, Dana Brooke and Eva Marie and Emma, and, you know, there were other women who were getting
Legends.
Opportunities. Well, in the case of Eva Marie, of course, but other women who were getting these opportunities, and she was just kind of there and could never really capitalize, and I thought the package did a great job.
And
of
WWE does have a tendency of pushing a narrative, but they're a storytelling company. You know, they're supposed to push narratives in those video packages. But this was one that fans actually felt. I feel like it was legitimate. They weren't forcing anything, and when you look back on it, it can maybe feel like that because you sort of think that's what WWE does. But at the time, fans really loved Bayley, and they really wanted her to win. And it was sort of likely and expected because Sasha had moved up to the main roster, so it would make sense for her to lose the title. But still, it's Bayley. You never really know. And so, again, she comes out paying homage to Dusty. Sasha comes out in her Escalade, which, again, was a really cool entrance. It really fits her whole boss sort of persona. And then, as the match sort of starts, Sasha's, again, like super dismissive of Bayley because she's just this fan. She doesn't deserve to be in the ring with the boss, you know? And that's how it starts out. And then as the match progresses, Bayley comes at her quick and proves to her, like, hey, no, I am a threat. And then as soon as Sasha realizes this, she starts targeting the hand, and that's where the match sort of kicks in, sort of, kind of. And I want to know, basically, what are your thoughts on the match itself?
I think that if last week's match was a masterclass in pacing and structure and just kind of general strong style
and chops.
As well.
Yes,
and chops. Masterclass in chops. This match is a masterclass in how to translate your character work into in-ring work. Of course, we know, you know, Sasha Banks is super cocky. Bayley is the personification of an underdog. And I thought it was a really great touch that they know each other so well. It's shown that if they want to hit a big move, it takes a good 3 attempts at least for them to hit it without being countered. And if you notice, they had to keep innovating throughout the entire match because they had to throw things that they hadn't seen at each other because it was the only way they were guaranteed to land a hit. I thought it was a great touch that they had to do that, and of course we saw Sasha was willing to be just absolutely vicious. We saw what she did with Bayley's hand, and that Bayley, of course, is able to overcome and fight through anything. I thought that when it came to taking your character and translating it into what you do inside of the squared circle, I thought it was fantastic.
Someone actually trying to do a show. Oh my gosh, are we gonna be kicked out? Hello, do we have to start wrapping up?
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Well, we're getting the go home cue, you know. So basically,
we got 2 minutes.
We do. Bayley versus Sasha Banks, guys. Great match, great storytelling. A little bit sloppy at points. Yeah. Oh, this things that we can't really go into it that much.
I gave it 3 3/4 stars. If I knew the backstory and if I was entrenched in the history at the time and was a fan at the time, I probably would have given it more. But just as a fan from now with no context, I think it was all right. It was
for
good.
sure. Yeah, it was definitely all
better
right.
than all right. I gave it 3 3/4
Yeah, fair
stars,
enough.
but it was good.
Yeah, and again, so much of it was dependent on the context of it, because it was back when women weren't given those sort of opportunities. They weren't pulling out tope con hillos or reverse Frankensteiners from the top rope. That was a new thing for women in WWE, and a very cool match, very historic. I think, again, it will go down in history. It's a great match, and yeah, guys, thank you for joining us for another week of Main Stage. I wish we could play some music to play out right now.
But maybe the person coming into the studio knows how to turn the monitor on that hasn't been working for about 35, 40 minutes.
Yeah, no, it's a bit unfortunate. But thank you all again for joining us for another episode of Main Stage Wrestling. Find us at Mainstage SU on Instagram and Twitter. Goodbye, everybody.